Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about Overwatch's lore and some of the problems that it has right now. Now obviously, just a few days ago we got the Overwatch Archives event and we got Storm Rising, and it's fun. It's a decent event, but in a lot of ways I feel like it was more problematic for the Overwatch story than anything else. And I want to kind of cover some of the things that I think are wrong right now and problematic right now with the Overwatch lore. And one of the things that I think is really making this Overwatch story so complicated and why it's as problematic as it is. So, the first thing I want to say is when it comes to animated shorts, I have no issue with only getting 2 animated shorts per year. My issue comes with the other things surrounding it, right? I understand that animated shorts are realistically hard to get out. Yes, they're not super long, but they're so well animated and there's so much care put into those that they take a long time to animate. Now, I think that they probably shouldn't do it where they have one in August or September, and then the next one isn't until BlizzCon, and then that's it. So you have to wait until 8-9 months into the year to get your first one, then the 11th month of the year get your second one, and then you got to wait. Again, I think it should be more centralized. One at BlizzCon, then maybe one in March or June or May. So, kind of late spring, early summer, more so, I guess, type thing. So there are some things with the animated shorts that I think could be improved upon in terms of when they release them, but obviously I think that's one of those things where I'm not super annoyed by the rate at which we get those animated shorts. What I am more annoyed by is the way that the story has developed over the past almost 3 years now, since the release of Overwatch. So I have a couple points I kind of want to hammer in here so I don't make this video a little too long, but we'll see how it goes. But the first thing I really want to kind of talk about is the fact that stories that are created or that are told never really answer any questions that other stories pose. They just create new questions. We'll get some kind of piece of a story and it'll, explore something, but it doesn't answer any questions that were created in the past. And, in a lot of ways, it creates a new one. And I think the Storm Rising event is a perfect example, right? If you play the Storm Rising event and you read some of the build up surrounding the Storm Rising event, it didn't answer any questions, right? Because we didn't know that Maximilian was ever confronted by Overwatch or in Overwatch custody. So that wasn't even, we never even knew this mission existed. So it's not like we'd heard about this thing that had happened in the past. Unlike something, say, like Retribution last year, where the Venice incident was something that had been teased with Moira and something we had learned about. But when you look at this, Storm Rising, there was no kind of indication of that. And then, they talk about, oh, what happened to Reinhardt in some of the voice interactions. Well, what did happen to Reinhardt? We don't know what happened to Reinhardt. You're just saying something happened to Reinhardt. We don't know what. Then you have the very ending, where we see some character who we've never seen before, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. We see Doomfist, and we do know that Doomfist gets captured by the Overwatch strike team thanks to Doomfist's origin story, but, this didn't answer any questions, right? Oh, okay, well, they found Doomfist because of Maximilian, okay, but that's not really like a real question. It's one of the things where he's Doomfist. You're gonna find the guy eventually. It's not that surprising. It is what it is. Eventually, you run into the guy. He's not hiding too much. He's got a giant golden gauntlet. You're gonna find him eventually. And this is probably my biggest criticism. And then it's not also that they don't answer past questions. They never end, right? you have a story, right, where you, they build up to something and then it's never built up. The story isn't progressing. It has basically reached a point and then stopped because the whole point of the game is that there's a present day, right? So the events of the story are ongoing, so you never see them fully, you know, completed because they haven't been completed yet. The story isn't over. And I don't really need the story to progress forward right now, but I think there's ways you should be going about it, one of which I'll touch upon later. But give me what happened in the past. If you're just going to keep the story at this kind of, it reaches a point and then it just kind of everything is at the same time period, at least give us more information about what was actually happening in the past. You're just saying, oh, this is this and this is that, and here's a story that we're going to start, but then we're going to tease it and how it ties into another story, but then we're never going to answer that story. We're just going to say there's another story coming, and it's so confusing and it's really hard to follow, especially if you haven't been following it from the beginning. Like I haven't been following it from the beginning. I don't. There's a lot of things I've missed, and then you know a new story comes out and you're like, oh, this is really cool. This gives insight into something we didn't know, such as the Bastet short story, right? We didn't know anything about Soldier 76 and his relationship with Vincent, but now we know. We didn't even know Vincent was a person, and now we know who Vincent is and that the two of them had a relationship. And that opens up a lot of options and a lot of, you know, different storytelling. But also, the story only says so much, and I think a big problem with that is I don't think there's enough members on the story team to realistically get the story going. And a part of that is one of my next points, which is that new heroes are added at a rate that you can't keep progressing stories that you've told because you have to then change the narrative of what you're doing to then explain the new hero. So, if you're getting a new hero every 4 months, you know, you can only tell a story so much to a point where then you have to stop and switch over to telling the story of this new hero. Now, I don't think that they should slow down their hero releases. I really love getting heroes, and in fact, I would rather get more per year. But I understand game development. I'm not going to be pushing too hard. But the rate that they create new heroes and add them into the game, paired with the way that they've been doing lore recently, it's something that just doesn't really seem like it's working in the lore favor. And I understand obviously that Jeff has mentioned the fact that they're not really working on in a lot of these events adding new things and new modes because they're focusing on quality of life changes and other big game changes, but I don't really see how those would really impact, you know, comics or short stories. I guess I don't see the inside. I don't know how it works. I don't really know what the, obviously funding could be a part of it. They only have so much money dedicated to certain things, so they have to kind of pick and choose what they're making and what they're not making. But you know, they keep adding all of these new heroes at a rate where they can't tell stories. And tied into that, they're also creating new characters that aren't heroes, and then you don't really explain who they are because you have heroes you got to focus on, and you still have stories from other characters that you never you never finished. We still know very little about Diva. We still know very little about Lucio. These are heroes in the game whose stories haven't been explored because they just keep saying, okay, well then there's also this you got to explore, and we want to explore this too. This is really important. Oh, but also something else is really important. It's very kind of like you focus on one thing and then they move to another thing, and then you can't go. You got to go back to the other thing you were focusing on, but then now you focus on these two things and you haven't focused on this over here, so you gotta give a little bit of there, and everything's all over the place. There's no direction with what they're doing, and then they just keep creating new things and adding them into the mix, and like it's hard to follow. Even just in the the Storm Rising event, we see this new Omnic character at the end. We don't know who that is. We know nothing about them. They're just teased, and it's like, look, this really cool tease. Okay, and then we learn about Sojourn, who is someone who's been around, and we have seen evidence of Sojourn going back to as far as the recall short, where she shows up as one of the people being recalled. But see Sojourn, we know she's a commander or a strike captain, one of the two. She is just a member of the command for the strike team. So she's doing that. Is she going to be a hero in the future? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. there's no evidence that there is. There's evidence that she won't be the next hero, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But they're always adding new things in. They're always just developing new stories. That is fine to develop new stories, but it's a problem when you neglect the stories that you had been telling, that because of these new stories you're no longer telling. And that's really where I think this story is struggling. Is they have all of these really, really, really big stories they want to tell, and they kind of decide, well, we didn't get to this one yet, and this one's really, really cool, and I think we need to tell this one now because this is one that people are going to really, really like. And I think it just comes down to the fact that they know that this is a game, and a game's life is not eternal. And if you're, if you're the Overwatch team, you're saying we have to tell as much of the story as we can before we can't tell the story any longer. So they give us unsatisfying bits and pieces of everything to keep us wanting more and wanting more and wanting more, but then they never give us more, and they never give us the answers to what we want. And it just doesn't make any sense. So that's of course very unfortunate. And back to this kind of this idea of what always wanting more. They tease future heroes so early. In a recent interview with O'Nickel on his Facebook live stream, Jeff Kaplan, mentioned, yes, Sojourn's not Hero 31, Echo's not Hero 31. Well, then why are we learning about Echo? Why are we even learning that Echo is the real character if you're just going to put her at the end of an animated short and you're going to say, here's Echo, look, she's a really cool character, but you're not going to find anything out about this character for a year plus. Then why are we seeing this character? And then Junker Queen, he said that they have big plans for Junker Queen, and that they're a little more on the wait side, so a bit of a longer kind of future plans type thing. Well, Junker Queen has always had some ties to some other stuff. She's involved in Junkertown, and she's on the map. Her voice is, at least, so that one's a little bit different, of course, because there's something that she is doing in the game. But it's just, there's so much confusing, just the way they do things. It just confuses me. They're always, saying, here's this, here's that. You're never going to learn about that. We're going to wait forever to give you this. And it's just like who's Liao, for example? Like, you're giving us new characters all the time. But there's still a founding member of Overwatch, of the Overwatch strike team, that we know absolutely nothing about other than a last name. So what's the deal with that? Where is the rest of these characters that we just aren't seeing anymore? It's one of the things that really, really baffles me. Like, there's a member of the original team we don't know anything about. There are characters that have been shown and teased in some capacity we know nothing about. And I understand, obviously, that it's something that you kind of can have fun with if you are the Overwatch team. You like to see people kind of theorizing and whatnot, and I get that. And I'm sure that there are things behind the scenes that we don't know about. But it's just something that I just don't get it. And I think that the best fix, I think, would be comics, which We've not had any comics in over a year now. We had the Bastet short story, but it was not a comic. Now, luckily, Jeff Kaplan on that same Facebook live stream with O'Nickel said that there are comics in development. Didn't really go much into detail about what kind of comics or how frequent the comics are, but I think that's comics are the kind of thing that you can really explore. You can tell really good stories with those comics. They're short, they're easy. You can develop more of the story that way. You can explain things before we get the characters as heroes instead of just giving us little nuggets here and there, right? We don't get anything, if we're not getting comics or an event. I feel like most of the lore we get nowadays is just through voice interactions and voice lines, and those are only so telling of the story. They give more of an idea of character interaction between other characters. They don't really tell as much about stories. So, in general, the Overwatch lore problem, if I had to give a TLDW, too long didn't watch, the problem with the Overwatch lore is that it's very, very, very unpredictable. They never finish stories quickly, and they're constantly bringing in new elements, new stories, new characters in general, whatever it may be, hero, non-hero, whatever. They're always bringing stuff in to add to the story without ever really telling the story. So for every new bit they add, the story gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and it becomes more holes in the story and more things that don't make sense, more things that don't add up, more questions that never get answered. And if they don't get answered, at a quicker rate, we may never find out some of the things that we, as fans, have wanted to know about the game for a long time. And that's really kind of my fear with the with the story. And when you have a team like the Overwatch team, like Blizzard in general, who try to not show you things till they're ready, they're very kind of secretive as a dev team. They're very behind closed doors, hush hush. We don't talk about things that we're doing for the future because we don't want to ruin surprises, or we don't want to give timelines or whatnot. Which I'm fine with timelines. I'm fine with we don't want to say something's going to be released at this point in time because then it sets fan expectations. But if you could say, here's the kind of thing to expect, and I think they've done a much better job recently with kind of saying here's what we're working on, right? We know guaranteed that at least Echo is being worked on as a hero. There's a good chance that this new Omnic we saw at the end of the Storm Rising thing is being worked on as a hero. We know that there are things that they're saying straight up, we are working on these characters as heroes. Whereas, for my time with Overwatch, we didn't know who anybody was. We didn't know that they were developing Moira to be a character. We didn't even know who Moira was. We didn't know they were developing Brig to be a character. We didn't know they were developing Wrecking Ball to be a character or Ashe to be a character. But we got them. So it is nice in a way to kind of have transparency of what's, some of what they're doing. But the story side of it isn't really getting explored. And we're not really getting, developments on, what's going on with the story. Other than, we're going to be making more comics. Or, you're going to see some more story stuff going forward. And they don't tell us what that story stuff even is. So, it would be nice to get a little bit more development with the story, but for now, we'll just have to wait and see what happens next. But I'm going to end this video off here. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below your own thoughts on the lore, how you think it needs to be developed, or if you think it's developing at a fine pace. If you don't think it's being developed at a fine pace, what things do you think they could change, or what kinds of things would you like to see the Overwatch League, or not Overwatch League, Overwatch team do to develop more storytelling in the future. But I'm out of here now. I'm going to go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a very, very wonderful Easter if you celebrate that. If not, have a very good Sunday, have a very good weekend, and enjoy whatever it is you plan on doing. But thank you for watching. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.